What is World Food Safety Day? I think it's the first time this particular day is coming across my radar. And why was it established?
So, World Food Safety Day is very important as it is a global concern. Food safety actually is a very global concern. Millions of people actually fall ill and die each year due to consuming unsafe food. This refers to food that usually contains harmful substances like your bacteria, your viruses, and parasites, or even chemical substances, which can be contaminated from what you call farming. Yes, sorry. So this leads to a lot of foodborne illnesses. So these contaminants have caused over 200 diseases ranging from diarrhea to cancers globally. So with the importance of Food Safety Day, it serves as a reminder of food safety and ensuring that health and well-being of people worldwide and sorry and ensuring the
Andiswa? Oh, we lost Andisa there for a second. Perhaps we'll try and patch back with her on this World Food Safety Day as she tries to loop us in on the importance of it. I think we got her back on the line. Andiswa?
I'm sorry, I don't know what happened.
It's all right.
Where was I?
You were telling us about the importance of it, considering that food safety is can be attributed to contaminants that cause over
Oh,
200 diseases.
yes. So these contaminants include your diarrhea. Sometimes it can be vomiting. It can also lead to severe things like your cancers. So the importance of Food Safety Day serves as a reminder of the importance of food safety in ensuring the health and well-being of people worldwide. And it is usually observed on the 7th of June, which is today. And it aims to raise awareness about the needs for safe, nutritious, as well as sustainable food systems.
Mm. Let's talk around the conversation around around food safety, rather. Are we having enough of that kind of discourse? And considering also that we as South Africans have had a lot of headlines in recent years of incidences that are related to some other kind of poisoning or contaminants within some of our foods.
Yes. Can you please repeat?
If we're focusing on world food safety, the importance of having that conversation, considering that South Africans, we've seen the headlines in recent years, with issues around food and potential food poisoning in some of our communities. How important is it for us to have these conversations?
So I feel like a lot of people do still need to be educated about food safety, as not a lot of people actually are aware of how important it is. Especially when you are making like your own food. Sometimes you tend to overlook some things which can actually be quite harmful. There are certain safety measures that you can take to ensure that food is safe, but I think the conversation still needs to actually be on the table, and people need to be alerted about unsafe food and its harm and its dangers.
So we're not doing enough by way of awareness.
I don't think a lot of people are quite aware about how important it is to ensure safe food preparation,
All right.
especially home consumers, people who make food at home. Some restaurants, like your small operating restaurants, some do overlook these things. So I think we do need some education.
Mm. And by way of just food safety, are we specifically looking at, matters around food preparation in our domestic settings, or are we also looking at the value chain of food production and manufacturing?
We are actually looking at everything from the food being planted and being harvested to transportations right to when it is being consumed. So it is the whole food sector in essence, not just domestic, but also large scale and industrial.
Hmm. Talk to us also about there was a gathering that was had last week by the department, and what was the purpose of this gathering and some of the discussions, perhaps?
So the gathering that occurred last week was an event regarding indigenous and orphan crops. These are crops that are overlooked, that have been consumed before, but no longer form a major part of our diet. So we were basically reintroducing them into people to people, and we just wanted to give people, like, tell people how you can do the how what you can make with the certain foods, how you can use them, and what they could be used for, how to prepare them. So yeah, it was basically all the food that we usually plant at the campus at Future Africa that we had to harvest ourselves from Future Africa.
All right. Sort of things like foraging. Is foraging still a thing, and how does it relate to this conversation around food safety?
Foraging is still a thing. Sorry. Um, okay, how can I put it? It is very, because there are things that are not known. For instance, some of the things that we were using last week we did not know, and our curator was foraging them. I'm not quite sure where they got them, but they were able to get them and then plant them into at our campus for easy access. Can you please repeat the second part of your question?
I was wondering if foraging is still a relevant source of food. How does it then factor into food safety? If we're talking around food safety, is it a better option? Does it present, better possibilities?
It does provide better opportunities because if you plant food yourself, you tend to use a lot of pesticides, which might also be a risk factor in food health. Sorry, but if you forage, most of these plants they grow themselves. They do not need any pesticides, any chemicals to actually help them grow. So I think it is still a factor, and it actually is an advantage in terms of chemical health.
I see. All right. So just as we conclude the conversation, Andiswa, parting shots, things that you would like South Africans to be aware of, and I guess those also particularly who play in the food industries, whether they are restaurateurs, small-scale farmers, or perhaps people who are in the business of selling food products.
So, with things that I would actually want people to know is people need to be aware of the proper hygiene practices, like how to properly handle food, how to clean your stations, make sure that everything you do when handling food it is sanitary and it is clean. Like that, we can ensure food safety. Also, I think what people need to know and understand is that besides people, especially in restaurants, besides the back of house being responsible for making sure that the food is safe, us as well as consumers, we need to be able to be aware and observe the space that we consume food in to make sure that it is safe for our consumption. So yeah, I just want to raise food safety awareness. And I think you could also just, for extra information, learning about food safety and the precautions you can take to make sure that your food is safe, you can go to the who.com on the internet, and it could give you like very insightful tips on how to ensure food safety.
What was that URL again?
Who.com.
Who, as in
The World Health
World Health.
Organization.
Okay. All
Yes.
right. Thank you so much. That was Andiswa Zondi, who is a student with the Department of Consumer Sciences at the University of Pretoria. WHO, that is the World Health Organization, has more information in as far as food safety and all the measures that you could, incorporate specifically within the household in as far as ensuring that you practice good food hygiene and good food preparation hygiene. Still to come on the show on this Friday, we're going to be in conversation for stages, pages, screens and more with an SA fashion brand. He's the creative director behind the brand Excelsior Luso. I want to say Luso, but he's going to come up. He's already in the building and let me know if it is indeed Excelsior Luso. They're shaking things up in Paris, and we'll find out more about their journey. Lots of South African creatives at the moment, and really African creatives by a greater extension, doing amazing things on the global platform. If you look at fashion, if you look at music, you look at filmmaking and television, people are out there truly just representing us at the highest levels, which is incredible. And then on the other side of we're still sticking to stages, pages, screens and more, and we're going to touch base with the folks out at the UJ Art Gallery. They're always activating that space in very interesting ways, and we'll find out what is on the calendar in the next coming weeks. And of course, we're going to be catching up with Professor, and he is a South African Kwaito star and of course a music producer, and he's going to tell us what's he been up to. It's been a minute, I think, since a few Professor fans heard from the man himself. What's he been up to and what we can look forward to in the year as the year unfolds. He's got some new music for you, so that should be of interest if you are a fan. 086 000 2032 and of course 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. What is on the cards for you this weekend? It is bitterly cold. I venture to think that it is bitterly cold almost countrywide. The snow, I'm thinking, has fallen in Lesotho and has been falling over the last couple of weeks. And of course, you know, when the snow falls in the mountains of Lesotho, it affects us as well. And we get to share in just the chill of it all without the beauty of the snow-capped mountains. So I wonder if you are staying in this weekend and taking things nice and easy. We've had so much excitement as a country over the last 2 weeks that perhaps a lie-in with a cup of your favorite Java and just really just coming to center with thyself would be the best thing this weekend, and maybe even just staying away from the news and all the coalition talks. I don't know. Or maybe you derive your pleasure and your relaxation from consistently following what's happening on the news circuit and every step that's been taken, in regards to these conversations. But we'd love to hear from you in as far as your weekend plans. 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAFM.
Youth Month on SAFM. Hashtag Freedom30. Hashtag Youth Month.
A very good afternoon. With the news headlines, the DA says it'll hold discussions with other opposition parties in a bid to constructively engage on the ANC's proposal to form a government of national unity. Police Minister Bheki Cele has reaffirmed the government's commitment to equipping the police service with the necessary resources to combat crime, and rescue operations for families cut off by floodwaters in and around Oudtshoorn in the Little Karoo will continue today. I'll be back with a full news update at 2.
Hi, I'm Khomotso KG Mweketi, and I believe in music's ability to connect, to heal, to remind, and to bring joy. And each week on my Saturday and Sunday show Seasons right here on SAFM, I endeavor to do just that. So join the movement of Seasons every Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's addictive. You might invite a friend. Seasons, only on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide with me, KG Mweketi.
every person, no matter who you are, what music you're inclined to listen to, and what you do with your weekends. You need a weekend playlist.
When I started out, it was just a matter of seeing you every day. And one day I'll reach it.
It's that musical mix of music that accompanies the lazy weekends, whether catching up with friends and family or just taking some time to reflect. Tune in to The Soundtrack of Your Life with me, Ernest Pillay, Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 4 on SAFM.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM. Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Hi, this is Caroline from Cape Town. Thanks for the interesting discussion. Just to say, foraging means harvesting plants from the wild, which is great if you know what you're doing and can make sure it's safe. But of course, the areas of our country where there's wild felt natural habitat left are getting smaller and the population's getting bigger. So it isn't necessarily sustainable to harvest from the wild or forage. But that idea that your speaker mentioned of collecting seeds or seedlings from the wild and then cultivating them, that is the way to go, because then we can get bigger quantities and farm with those indigenous plants where possible.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen. Stages, pages, screens, and more on The Full Circle.
Okay, I think Caroline should have been a part of the conversation. Caroline, you sound like, quite a bit about foraging. It's interesting, right? The concept of going out there and letting nature provide for you. I would probably poison and harm myself at my first attempt because I would see anything that looks like a mushroom and I'd be like, edible. Anything that looks like a berry and I'd go, that's the way forward. You know what I mean? I'm not the person that you take on Survivor and just have them surviving on anything that the world provides. But it'd be interesting to actually explore the conversation a little bit more about foraging. And see how many of our listeners or South Africans actually still kind of practice that kind of lifestyle. But right now, though, stages, pages, screens, and more, as you heard, Mac Mashilo is the creative director behind the South African brand Excelsior Luso, which is set to shake things up in Paris, and it's a haute couture fashion brand, and it's going out to do big things. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you for such a very great honor to welcome me here.
Thank you for coming through. Give us a history as to Excelsior Luso. Who are you guys by way of the brand, of course?
Yeah.
And when was this idea conceptualized?
I became the creative director and the Excelsior Lusos 2022 when I was showcasing in Paris, and an amazing CEO. Her name is Promising Ngobo. She's my boss, and I got that opportunity to become part of the creative director. Excelsior Luso, it's a brand that definitely defines South African women. We're looking at texture, color, shape, all those culture and heritage that blends together with Africa into becoming a brand that it is right now as a haute couture luxury wear for women's wear in South Africa and in Africa. Yeah.
I mean, given the name, I presume that at its inception, the idea or the vision was already to position it globally, right? Because it's got a name that doesn't quite say South African or African.
The name of Excelsior, it's found within. It's a name that is found within the mining industry, with a diamond that was found here in South Africa, that was taken into Europe, and it came with a name called Excelsior, and that was the name of that particular diamond. And Luso, it means the highest of luxury. Yeah.
I see. All right. So give us a bit also an idea, because we visual thinkers on this show on Fridays.
Yeah.
Give us an idea in terms of when you say, it's positioned as a high luxury brand for women.
Yeah.
But that could mean a whole host of things.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
Yeah. So help us understand your vision of luxury and what that is.
A vision of luxury, as we know that luxury keeps on evolving all the time. I mean, it is the brand that definitely understand what is a lifestyle it's all about, and we believe that in the lifestyle of everything that we do in Excelsior Luso goes along with the whole understanding of the woman that we design for. I mean, luxury comes with time. The woman that we design for is a woman that we understand that time is very precious for her when it comes to fitting, in terms of communicating with her, when are you coming and everything. So all that experience before we even attempted to design a garment for, we make sure that meticulous communication between the client and ourselves and the woman that we designed for. Because of our Excelsior Luso woman, it's a woman that understands who she is and her identity, and it's a woman that definitely travels across, and definitely with that she wanna say with a statement, you get what I mean? So it's more like a woman who definitely want to preserve her heritage, and as an African woman, you want to tell her story with each and every garment that she wears. You get what I mean? Like, typical example, if you can look at to our craftsmanship when it comes to African beads and everything. So she's a woman of identity. Definitely, when you see her, you will definitely realize that she's a woman of luxury that is coming from Africa, or in South Africa. Yeah.
All right. I mean, I'm spying as you talk. As you talk to us, Mac, I'm spying on your social media pages, right? And you make reference to she's a woman who's conscious about the preservation of her heritage. And in what ways does that preservation come through? In what ways do you sort of weave that preservation of heritage into the work that you do?
I mean, preservation of everything that I do in my work as a creative director, it is come in a form of trying to look of who we are. As Africans, and look at to what are elements that definitely correlate with us. I mean, I can give a simple experience that I came across. Is Tolo, like how amazing it is when you're in Europe, you're wearing is Tolo. Like, everyone look at you, and we just realizing they haven't seen this before, and we definitely something that we need to preserve and tell our own story with, and that particular becoming an accessory that becomes an amazing thing, and we preserve that particular accessory by making sure that it definitely stand out with the statement of the pieces that we design, and then it complements what we do in our creative side of things.
Yeah. And how is it sort of or maybe before I ask that, so you guys came into partnership with UNESCO for UNESCO's Africa Week 2024, and you showcased at the show. It's already happened, right?
Yeah.
You showcased at the show in Paris, France. How very fancy. And how was that experience for y'all? Was it the first time, firstly, that you were showcasing in Paris?
It is our first time as Excelsior Luso showcasing in Paris, with the vision that I brought into Excelsior Luso was global ambitions. I mean, it's a brand that definitely needs to be seen out there. It's a brand that has a statement, and this was our very first time. We were the only SADC brand that's representing the entire SADC region. The experience comes with, coming across with designers from Morocco, Ghana, Uganda, here. You get what I mean? So it was more like a Pan-African type of way, but every designer right there was trying to tell their own story, their own identity. So it was such an interesting moment of time, because when you look at each and every culture, you start to look at yours as well and complement one another. So it was such a very amazing experience to see all the designers coming from Africa and find yourself in the space where you only represent in SADC, and being able to stand on the forefront of telling the story of South African, and also being able to tell our own story as Excelsior Luso.
Yeah, and by way of reception, because, for the most part, South African designers who've showcased internationally, and we've had some formidable brands, whether you look at David Lally when he first showcased in New York Fashion Week, and then subsequently went on to do it for, I think, 4, 5, 6 years. And we've had so many brands. Tebe Magugu, who launches his collections in Paris under the banner of LVMH. There's been resounding sort of reception for what Africans bring to the table of design. And how was the reception for you guys? And considering that you just said that, you brought the sort of a global perspective to the brand, and you want to see it have sales and have a market share internationally.
I mean, how we've been received. I mean, we should look into something that I've been talking about with other designers, that the European market is trying to tap into our identity. We have seen this a couple of times with Louis Vuitton when they use the Basotho, you get what I mean? So, and if we are on the space as designers and not being able to be confident enough to say this market is open, I mean, it is so inspiring and amazing and interesting, because we are now living in a digital age that gives us this platform, you get what I mean? You find yourself that Will Smith's daughter, she's doing something like Istrolo as a form of Istrolo, but you can see that the reference is coming from there. So it's a matter of that when we are sitting on the ground of creativity within ourselves, let's think within the global region and the market that's out there and it's open. I mean, how it was received, we with this collection to UNESCO, when I was discussing with my team, and I said it shouldn't just be about us, it should be about other people. We definitely partner nabo mothers that do beading, you get what I mean? We said, I'm going to sell your work when we get to Paris. So definitely we also sell those work as well, to make sure that we see how the market responds to our creativity. And we found it so amazing in the market share that we were exchanging euros when we were coming from the airport. So, yeah.
Look at, he's smiling. You can hear the smile in Mac Mashilo's voice. He's the creative director behind Excelsior Luso. And of course, they've just come back from that UNESCO Africa Week, the fashion event that took place in Paris, and a very competitive space, the space of fashion. And we make mention about how particularly social media has crossed the divide and opened up the world to everybody, right, in real time, which means that brands such as yourself are no longer just sitting in isolation as African or South African brands. You're now trying to clamor for the eyes and the wallets of international women out there who've got a host of other brands that they can and, might want to choose from. And I wonder, with that kind of competition, how do you then ensure sustainability for your brand, especially if it's a young brand trying to compete in a very open market global space?
That's right. I mean, the minute when you start to have a global ambition and global prospects into the vision of the brand, that is very important. That consistency is something that is being taken care of as a key, and that essence. And I always emphasize these things. It's like we need to be strategic with our own moves. I mean, how we do collaboration. I think collaborations are one of the key things that will definitely put you aligned. That is what we see at this moment of time. We can look at in other brands overseas. I had an amazing privilege, in Paris. Go to other shows, look at to Mango, and you see Mango collaborating together with Victoria Beckham to create the sustainability of it. And I think it's one of those things that we need to bring in our country and see what are collaboration that we can do. I mean, right now we see Dior with North Face working together in a collaboration. You get what I mean? I think sustainability of ours needs to, let's open even the corporates out there in South Africa to look at us, that we trying to put the message out there, finding sponsorship that they can definitely ignite the creativity, the passion that we have. You get what I mean? Because we don't want to just do runways that have been doing in 1960 on whatsoever. We want to bring experiential thing. That's what Exosoluso is all about. Exosoluso is all about lifestyle experience. When you come to our show, it has to be an experience. It has to be a lifestyle. And that's what we see even the social media that demands the lifestyle. We see people traveling to Monaco for the Formula One just to take a selfie, just to take...
I hear you. I hear you. Mac, we've fast run out of time. But that, the examples that you bring forth there also open up a conversation that must be had at some point around the diffusion of luxury with more ready-to-wear brands and how those two worlds converged in order to leverage off each other. But for now, congratulations on this journey as creative director of Excelsior Luso. We wish you all the best of luck, and we'll be keeping a keen eye on this particular one. That was Mac Mashilo. It's time for us to get into Nalibali, which should run us to the top of the hour for the news.
Channel the best father you can be on Afternoon Express, Tuesday at 6 p.m. on S3. As psychologist Clint Maggot offers effective coping strategies for men's mental health. Get tips on saving and investing for your child's education. And hear how Dr. Anza Chipetane shapes bright young leaders. That's Afternoon Express this Tuesday at 6 p.m. only on S3. Repeat Sundays at 8:30 a.m.
And we will buy 500 cars, and we will buy 500 more, just to be the one who buys your car. Will come to you and offer more. We buy cars, we buy cars. We buy cars, we buy cars.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
The Brave Warriors and the Carthage Eagles are delighted with registering wins in their first two Group H matches. They meet on South African soil in search of victory. They are battling it out in the FIFA World Cup African qualifiers. Southern Africa takes on North Africa. Catch the beauty of African football. Namibia versus Tunisia this Sunday 9 June at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Friends, and welcome to yet another exciting episode of Nali Bali. Playing is a natural and enjoyable way for us as children to keep active, stay well, and be happy. Freely chosen play helps our healthy development. To have good physical and mental health and to learn life skills, we need various unstructured play opportunities from birth until we are grown-ups. But most importantly, do what makes you happy. Come closer as we listen to today's story called Do What Makes You Happy, written by Jenny Robson. Let's listen closely now. But wait, before we listen, let's all get up and
dance!
One Friday afternoon, Mark, Silo and Tim were playing soccer outside the school hall. They had music in the hall, and Mark climbed up on the bench to look through the window. Inside, the girls were practicing ballet, and in the middle of the girls was Paul. The ballet teacher said, "Up on your toes, balance carefully, be light as feathers in the wind." Mark laughed so much he nearly fell off the bench. He beckoned to Silo and Tim.
Oh my word. Come and see you guys. These ballerinas are skipping all around and flapping their arms like crazy seagulls. Come watch Paul prancing around like a fairy princess. It's so hilarious.
Silo and Tim climbed on the bench beside Mark.
Oh, Paulina, pretty ballerina.
Silo mocked, tapping on the window to attract Paul's attention.
Guys, it's Princess Paulina.
They all laughed. Just then, Paul saw them and came to the window.
Come on, guys, you're being childish. Why can't you just accept that people like different things? Just leave me alone.
Yo, Bush didn't do ballet, man. Like, it's weird, come on. But I guess you just took care to play soccer,
said Mark. Suddenly, heavy rain started falling. Mark and his friends jumped down from the bench and ran to cover. By Saturday morning, the rain had stopped. Mark was walking beside the river that flowed along the edge of the town. Across the river, Mark saw Paul bending down in the bushes.
Hey, what is Princess Paulina doing?
Wondered Mark and decided to check. There was a bridge to cross the river, but it was broken. Half the planks and most of the handrail were missing. It looked dangerous. Mark decided it would be safer to walk across the river. Even after all the rain, it only reached his knees.
Hey, Paulina.
Mark called as he reached the opposite bank.
Are you picking pretty flowers?
Paul stood up.
Leave me alone, Mark. You live your life and leave me to live mine,
he said calmly. Mark felt that it wasn't much fun teasing Paul when his friends were in with him. So he asked seriously,
Hey man, seriously, why do you do ballet, Paul?
Paul smiled.
Why does it bother you what I do? I'm not mocking what you choose to do. You do what makes you happy and leave me to do what makes me happy. Then everyone is happy, right?
Just then, there was a loud noise like thunder. Both boys looked and saw a massive wall of water rushing down the river. It swirled widely, carrying broken branches along. It filled the river to the top of its banks.
Oh no! It's a flash flood!
Shouted Paul above the noise of the roaring river.
Oh my gosh! No! What are we gonna do?
Mark wailed. He was really scared.
Oh no! How can we get back to the other side of the river now? The bridge is broken and the river's too deep. It's full of branches and thick mud.
I think there's another bridge about 2 kilometers away,
said Paul.
What? No ways. We can't walk through the bush on the other side of the river. It's too thick. It's full of snakes and scorpions,
said Mark. Paul looked at the broken bridge and said,
I think I can cross it. If I go on my tiptoes, light as a feather, I should make it. Then I can call someone to help.
Mark watched as Paul crossed the broken bridge above the wild torrent of water. Paul stepped slowly on his tippy toes, his arm fluttering at his side to keep his balance. He didn't look like a crazy seagull or a fairy princess. No, he looked like the bravest boy in the world. At last, Paul was safely on the other side and ran to get help. Soon Paul returned with 3 men carrying thick ropes who helped Mark get safely across. That afternoon, it was the ballet recital at the school hall. The whole school was there. Mark sat between Silo and Tim.
This is gonna be so funny.
Laughed Silo. Tim nodded with a big grin on his face.
I can't wait to see Princess Paulina prancing around.
Laughed Tim. But this time, Mark didn't join the laughter. Instead, he said,
Oh, come on, guys. Just leave Paul alone, really, now. We need to accept that different people like different things.
I think Princess Paulina is too scared to do boys' things.
Said Silo.
No, you're wrong.
Said Mark.
You know what? I think Paul is the bravest boy I know.
And he told his friends what Paul had done at the river.
Wow, that's amazing.
Said Silo and Tim together.
Yeah, Paul does what makes him happy, and he leaves everyone alone else to do what makes them happy. As Paul says, then everyone is happy.
Explained Mark. Just then, the music began. Paul stepped onto the stage, and the girls skipped around him. Then he was leaping up in the air, so high it seemed like he was flying.
Woo! Yeah, go Paul!
Shouted Mark. He clapped and cheered loudly. Silo and Tim stared at their friend. Then they nodded and began to clap and cheer too. And so we come to the end of another Nali Bali story time. Today's story was called Do What Makes You Happy, written by Jenny Robson. Did you know that reading and telling stories to children at home can help them do better at school? If you want free stories to read to your children or for your children to enjoy on their own, visit Nali Bali website www.nalibali.org or Mobi site www.nalibali.mobi. You will find stories in 11 South African languages, as well as tips for reading and sharing stories with your children to grow their potential. Also look out for the bilingual Nali Bali Reading for Enjoyment supplements with great children's stories and activities available in newspapers. Nali Bali, it starts with a story.
The National Pulse on SAFM.
Anybody can make allegations about anybody. And if you step aside or resign merely because of allegations, that can be manipulated simply to get people out of position.
No. Of course, I hear you. That's why, as an employer, you can't just fire all your employees. You need to go through a process. And part of that process is, for example, a disciplinary hearing. Because in terms of disciplinaries, normally, there's some policies and stuff that certain actions may contravene certain policies. So what I'm advocating for is a trial, a criminal trial. The state has to show beyond a reasonable doubt that you are guilty of an offence. But sometimes people's actions may not be a crime, but they have contravened policies.
Advocate Stephanie Fick, Outer Executive Director for Accountability and Public Governance.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m. Here on SAFM, we honor the contribution of the youth for our liberation. We also celebrate the liberation of our beloved country. Happy Youth Month, South Africa. SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation.
Top stories at 2 o'clock. Bheki Cele to step down and the DA prepared to work with some parties. Very good afternoon. Police Minister Bheki Cele has announced his intention to step down. He was speaking in Pretoria during the handing over of 130 vehicles to SAPS units. Cele, who has held the position since February 2018, will not be returning to Parliament alongside several other ANC MPs after the party's reduced share of the vote in last month's elections. Cele says he will prioritize family time and focus on his personal life.
There is a start, the end has arrived, if it has arrived, and I left home to come and work. So if work is not there, I go home and reflect and see how you go forward. But life has got many streams of life and all that. You can't be kicking the dust when the time has arrived, asking people and worried about it, as if you didn't know that the time will come. As I've said, once it starts, it will have to end.
The DA says it'll hold discussions with other opposition parties in a bid to constructively engage on the ANC's proposal to form a government of national unity. ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa made the announcement on the proposal last night following a protracted meeting of the party's top leadership. The DA, with nearly 22% of support, is currently part of the multi-party charter, which was formed to keep an ANC-EFF coalition out of power. Now, however, the DA's Soli Malati says the party welcomes a possible working relationship with the ANC.
The DA welcomes the fact that negotiations are now moving into a substantive negotiation phase. Our negotiation team will, based on the announcement that was made last night by the President, have further meetings with other parties to listen to their views and reactions. We also hope to get more details from the ANC on the final details of what the Government of National Unity proposal entails, which will then be deliberated by our Federal Executive and subsequently our Federal Council, which is due to meet on Monday.
Gauteng Community Safety MEC Faith Mazibuko says police are working around the clock to apprehend the killers of the two Soshanguve siblings, Tinyiko and Mfumo Mashaba. They were gunned down and burned after their shack was set alight on Sunday. Preliminary investigations suggest that the suspects were after their father, who was not at home during the incident. Speaking at the girl's funeral today, Mazibuko says police are tracing the suspects.
As communities, we believe these children must be raised in proper environments and they grow up to be better adults. Fortunately, two young souls have been burnt to death by a criminal. And that criminal is still at large. Up until now, the police have not found that person. And as the provincial government, we should and indeed promise that the police will work around the clock in ensuring that they do arrest that perpetrator.
Rescue operations for families cut off by floodwaters in and around Oudtshoorn in the Little Karoo will continue today. Yesterday, the SANDF, Air Mercy Helicopter Services and the Gift of the Givers distributed food parcels to around 90 families trapped by the Olifants River near Calitzdorp. The bridge over the river was damaged in the flood and is inaccessible. The municipality's Morne Tuise says with more rain predicted, it'll take around a week before any roads or bridges over rivers are accessible.
There's a few places that we still have to get to. It's the Stormdrift Dam. That people, the houses were underwater. It's only the roofs that is above the water. So we still have to go to that people also and go and have a look if they are fine and if they are sorted. But there's no lives at the states that was taken by the river, so it's a good thing.
And President Cyril Ramaphosa says South Africa and India will continue to work together on so many fronts. This follows the re-election of Narendra Modi as the Indian Prime Minister. Kayelihle Khumalo has more.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has affirmed that South Africa looks forward to continue working with India on matters of importance to the people of both countries. He has also commended Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi for his dedication and commitment to the people of India. South Africa and India share strategic partnership and they are part of G20 and BRICS bloc. Ramaphosa further emphasized the importance of the two countries' continued cooperation to promote the agenda of Global South, especially around the reform of global system of governance and to align positions in the global fora in the interest of strengthening multilateral organizations. Kayelihle Khumalo, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The top story at 2 o'clock, Police Minister Bheki Cele has announced his intention to step down. For SAFM News, ke Bridget Masinga.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
It is Friday after all. Professor featuring Speedy with this one. Lento is the name of the song, a Kwaito classic. And of course, you know that we play it because he's going to be joining us in conversation at the bottom of the hour. We're going to be in conversation with Kwaito artist and a music producer, Professor. So you definitely want to stick around for that. Fridays are for fun, fabulous conversations with the friends of the show. And we do take it nice and easy and also amplify the vibrations a little bit. Right now, though, we are going to be looking at a new exhibition called the Cosplay African Heroes Exhibition, which is happening at the UJ Art Gallery, and it's happening from the 8th of June. Well, it's opening on the 8th of June, and I wonder if it's going to be running for a while or it's just the one day only where you are invited to come out and dress up as your favorite African superhero and embark on a journey like no other. And we've got Denica Orton joining me on the line, who's the curator at the UJ Art Gallery. How are you doing, Denica?
Hi, good, thanks. And how are you?
I'm great. Let me put some respect on it as well. It's Dr. Denica, in fact. I'm good, thank you, on this very cold Friday afternoon. But all is well. Let's talk about this exhibition because it sounds like an exhibition unlike any other.
It really is. It's a really fresh exhibition. We have lots of color, lots of things happening on the day. So tomorrow will be the opening at 10:30 at UJ Gallery on Kingsway campus. And we have lots to offer for the day. We have a jumping castle, we have face painting, we have vendors selling all sorts of merchandise and things and comic books. So it's not very often that you find a comic book exhibition in a gallery such as the UJ Gallery, and that is what we're doing now. So we have talented young artists coming up with fantastic, interesting African heroes, original African heroes. And, you know, we're all used to the American heroes that we see in the superhero movies and so on. But it's so important for us to have heroes of our own, you know, of South African origin or African. And that we can more relate to, you know, because they speak to what's happening in the country and what's happening in this part of the world. And they speak to our experiences and what it is that we need heroes for. And I think that is what's making it such an interesting, fresh and exciting exhibition. Everyone around us is so excited for tomorrow. We are really running towards it, and we're all very excited. We are inviting everyone who will come tomorrow to cosplay if they want to, so to dress up as a hero or an African hero if they can. And if they can't, we have a photo booth with props that we have available for everyone so that you can dress up as well. And we really want to make it, we really want to invite anyone to come to the exhibition opening. You know, like people who are not necessarily usually in exhibitions or at galleries. We want to invite those people to come and have a look because it really is. It's a very exciting artworks on the wall, very energetic artist, and we really just want to have a fun day.
It sounds like there's definitely a lot of vibrancy behind this one. And internally, I chuckled a little bit when you said that, you know, there's not a lot of comic book exhibitions, or at least even in my world, I've not encountered a comic book exhibition. And I chuckled because I've been in conversation with some illustrators and, of course, storytellers within this particular discipline. And there's always the debate around whether or not it's made reference to as illustrated books or comic books, depending on how much of a purist you sort of deem yourself to be if you're a fan of the space. But why was it so vital for you guys as a UJ Art Gallery to actually activate this kind of exhibition?
Well, I want people to see that this sort of artwork is original and it's valuable artwork. It belongs in an art gallery as well as you know, in everyone's hands reading it. But it's also something that we need to appreciate. We need to appreciate the talent of these artists because they have so many skills in storytelling, in illustrating, in color, and you know, composition. They are just so much that they can offer us, and I think it's really important to elevate them as the artists that they really are.
And one such is the man behind one of the most successful illustrated books in South Africa, Kwezi, the comic book, and it's done by Loyiso Mkhize, and he's got such an incredible following, both domestically, continentally, and even globally, and even being recognized by Marvel and collaborating with them on some of their more recent projects. But that is the caliber of storytellers and creatives that we have in this space as South Africans. Why is it that this sector of literature is not given the due credit that it so has richly earned?
I mean, I asked that question myself because I don't understand it myself. I think that's part of the reason that we want to do this exhibition, because I really think these artists are like all other South African artists that we have. I think it's probably because they are linked to a certain what would you call it? Like a subculture, maybe. That it's sort of, they have their own platform at Comic-Con and so on that they can exhibit and so on. But I think it's important to bring them into the gallery to show that they are serious artists.
Absolutely. Let's talk about some of the selection and some of the pieces of the works that are going to be in exhibition this coming weekend.
So we have two groups presenting. We have the Afro Geek artist and Rainbow Nation Comics. So Rainbow Nation consists of two brothers, Umfile and Pamelo Dibodo, and the one is the illustrator, the one is the writer. And they have, their main hero for the comic book is Young Nelson, based on the young Nelson Mandela, which is a wonderful character. And he really, they're bringing out their third issue now of their comic book. So that's really a treat to see. And then we have two other artists, Trevor Ngwenya and Bill Masuku. And they are, like Bill, for instance, has captained South Africa. Most interesting, fascinating characters. So you'll see like a very proudly South African characters coming through. Bill, for instance, also have a coloring book, which is just delightful to see. And I think that's something that we'll have on the opening as well as activities, is coloring pages from these comic books for people to color in so we can participate in and also see, what it takes to bring a comic to life. And through the rest of the month that the exhibition will be up, it will be up until the mid of July. We have workshops on Saturdays as well, and one of the workshops will focus on create your own superhero writing in the writing version of it, then also illustrating it. And then we have one of the artists, also a very talented breakdancer, who's going to tell us how to tell stories through dancing. So we have a very interesting program ahead of us as well. But I think what's important is these really original superheroes that we have in this space, and I think people would really find something that they can relate to in these heroes.
And Dr. Denica, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I almost feel like this space also broadens the conversation around representation and diversity in contemporary art.
Exactly, and that's why we wanted to focus on original African heroes, but also on the African heroes in, bringing them home to the country, to our part of the world, so that we don't just, have dress-ups of American heroes that are these all these white heroes that we have, but that you can find someone that you relate to and that you can dress up in someone that is more South African, a more South African type of hero. And I think that is important because our heroes tell a lot about ourselves, like who we choose as a hero. It says something.
There's also something to be said about spaces like this, reviving sort of the word escapes me now, reviving periphery industries. Because I'm thinking, for instance, the publishing industry in South Africa, has sort of, it's gone through its ups and downs and it's faced challenges. But herein is another sector of bookmaking and of book consumerism that could revitalize a different area of publishing for a completely different market. And we see how incredible international brands like a Marvel, etc., have done in these spaces. So why can't Africans occupy this space from a business perspective?
Exactly. I think that is a very valuable point. And a lot of these artists have to self-publish their books. But if you look through them, they are magnificent. They are fantastic. These artists have so many talents, and it's something that I want to own, all of them, all of these comic books that we'll have on display tomorrow. It's the most interesting stories. It is colors at top. For me, they are more interesting than the Marvel and DC comics that we find, because we sort of already know those. These are fresh and new. They're like a new character coming to life. A new origin story. It's really something very fresh.
Let's also maybe look a little bit closer. You mentioned that you're going to be having workshops centered around creating your own superhero from a writing perspective and an illustration perspective. It's a beautiful opportunity, not just for young ones, but also for adult creatives who have a keen interest in the space, but perhaps may not know how to penetrate it or what's needed to make a success.
Exactly, and I think these artists that will present these workshops, they have so much energy and so much insight already, and we will have a few artists who sort of present together so that there are different insights as well, and then people can learn from each other. I think sometimes it's just good to sit on around the same table, to get together and learn from one another, because that's how we grow, if we grow in the community together.
So you say from the 8th, which is tomorrow, it's opening at 10:30, and then we're going to be running until mid-July. Anything that we should be aware of in that time frame by way of interactive experiences, walkabouts, etc.?
So the 3 workshops will happen on the Saturdays that we have in that month. And then also on the 19th of June, we have a panel discussion with the artist, which I think would be also very valuable to join. And that will be at 11 o'clock at the gallery.
And for all other information, obviously, the gallery's website, I'm presuming, is the best way.
Exactly, the website, and they're welcome to just pop in anytime.
Lovely stuff. That was Dr. Denica Orton, who is the curator out at the UJ Art Gallery. They are hosting what is the Cosplay African Heroes exhibition. It's opening tomorrow. 10:30 is when the doors open for you to come through and marvel at all those creations, and it's going to be running until mid-July. And of course, some interesting activities happening in and around that time with 19th of June, that panel discussion with creatives behind some of the comic book series. And of course, you heard Dr. Denica also saying that there'll be some workshops in between during the Saturdays centered around creating your own superhero and illustration. So whether you call it an illustrated book or whether you call it a comic book series, if you are interested in this space, it sounds like it's going to be a good event spanning 3 weeks, and there's more than enough knowledge sharing as well for those who have a vested interest, rather, for those who have, it's Friday, English, for those who have a vested interest in getting into the space in a deeper manner and not just the appreciation of it. But yes, they are saying tomorrow, come through dressed in all of your splendor, dressed as your favorite heroes and your favorite creatures of fantasy, and come have a good, fruitful day. And it sounded like it's open to the entire family as well. You heard Dr. Denica talking about jumping castles and all kinds of other activities and coloring books and engagements. So it's definitely a family thing. It's opening tomorrow and it's running until mid-July. And you can log on to UJ Art Gallery's website to get more information about ticketing. But normally UJ just has exhibitions that you can just walk into and activities that you can just walk into and really just enjoy. It's approaching 2:30, and then of course on the other side of 2:30 we're going to be catching up with Professor. He's in Durban, so he's not going to be in studio. He's in Durban, and we're going to patch through to him with the power of technological advancement. I'm going to find out what he's been up to. He's got a brand new track. We're going to talk about music. We're going to talk, around creating and his process, and of course, what's new on the calendar, and maybe even just the evolution of Kwaito, from a South African perspective. A lot of people now saying that Kwaito has firmly died, courtesy of Amapiano. But I'm sure there's room for the two to coexist. And Kwaito being one of the, from a South African perspective, Kwaito forms the base of most South African music. But we'll have that conversation with him on the other side of 2 o'clock. Let's take a quick pause and then we'll be right back.
Channel your inner adventurer on Top Travel this Saturday night at 8:30 on S3 as we're bathing in mud on an Eastern Cape safari. Blackwater tubing Storms River, free-falling over Plet having the time of our lives, cooking with South Africa's trailblazing salt chefs, and searching for the world's only whale crier in Hermanus. That's Top Travel this Saturday night at 8:30, repeat Sunday at 1 p.m. on S3.
TS Galaxy Queens and Richmond United ladies both love it in the top half. They want to go as high as possible but not willing to share any points. This is the Hollywood Men's Super League. Catch them Zanzi Queens of the beautiful game. TS Galaxy Queens FC tackles Richmond United Ladies FC on Sunday 9 June at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Actually, if you've never seen the work of Loyiso Mkhize, who is the creator and illustrator behind Kwezi, the comic book series or illustrated novel, however you view it, you definitely should, because when the professor was talking around the possibilities that are there for somebody who is a comic book creator or illustrator or a storyteller within that space, really you can do so much and it can evolve to so many things. What he does from a comic book perspective, incredible. In just unmatched world class. But then what he does as a contemporary artist in the traditional form, just equally weighted, or as the young kids will say, equally yoked to the work that he does as an illustrator for comic books. And you would never reckon that it's the same person, because if you get introduced to him from the visual artistic medium in terms of the canvas on paint, you are just completely blown away. And then when someone makes you aware that he's also the person behind one of the most successful comic book series on the continent, Kwezi, you just left dumbfounded, to be honest. How does somebody exist on both sides of this pendulum and do it so incredibly? Those who collect art in its traditional form, collect some of his works, and it hangs on the walls of some of the most respected collectors globally. And those who collect comic books revere his comic books with the same kind of weight as they do any other title internationally that is coveted by collectors. He's on social media at Loyiso Mkhize, and he oftentimes makes himself available to young illustrators and young people who want to get into the world of illustrated books. And he shares advice and he shares his talents and his experiences as to how you can make it work and how it can evolve into so many other things. And even the brand collaborations that he's done over the years, partnering with some top-end luxury brands. And you just would never think that a comic book, people would shun and say a comic book is not really a book, that a comic book can land you into so many spaces. But anyway, it's time for us to get into the headline news.
Thanks, Bridget. A very good afternoon. With the news headlines, President Cyril Ramaphosa says those affected by the floods in the Nelson Mandela Bay will be provided with temporary housing. Police Minister Bheki Cele has announced his intention to step down, and the Joburg Roads Agency has reopened Smith Street, which connects the Brixton and Braamfontein areas under the M1 bridge. Details of these and other stories coming up at 3.
Hi, my name is Kutlwana Masote, your host of Weekend Sundowner Classics every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between the hours of 4 and 7 p.m. exclusively on SAFM. Now, this is where you get your best classical music jams on any radio platform. Join me every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between 4 and 7 p.m. Weekend Sundowner Classics.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Uhlezi ufuna ukuimpress abantu makuphela ungibe icala okanti yini na sengabulala abantu engithi siyakha yangeni bandi yesoma
mina ngisatwala ngisitesa sana mani malinga ngisatwala ngisitesa ufuna mani malinga udema
We do appreciate it when you'll stay in contact with us on social media. See, we are happily keeping some of you company as you mission across to wherever your destination is. Just make sure to be safe on the road. Malungi, thank you so much for sending through your video journal of your journey on the South African roads. And of course, at Njuhuru, who shares my love and appreciation for Loyiso Mkhize and his incredible work. But right now, though, we just heard Watsamaya, which is a brand new record, brand new single by none other than Professor, featuring Nhlanhla Mafu of Mafikizolo on this one. A wonderful collaboration. How are you doing this afternoon, Prof?
All is well.
All is well. I mean, listen, we appreciate you, taking the time and in conversation with us today. I think your fans, bakumbulile, they miss you. It's been a long time since you released some new music.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Yeah, kakhulu. Ngikhumbula kakhulu industry especially manje sengithole opportunity ukuthi nje ngikhulumela la namhlanje ngicela ukubonga nje.
Manje, what took you so long? Uyifihle kuphi? Why were you not making music? At least making music that you yourself were presenting, because we know you've been active in the music industry from a production perspective.
Yes, yeah, I think if mangi check available from onset mangeno industry, I got in as a ghostwriter. I grew ngaze ngaba producer, but nje kahle ngiyathanda kakhulu behind. But nje sometimes ama fans, they don't get ukuthi babe no opportunity njenganginika wona manje ukuthi sibachazele ukuthi some songs that they are familiar with. Feature like maybe recent big songs, like maybe if I can take them back. Not so long ago, worked with Oskido on Amahrotman, which did very well. I think no Heavy K of recent, no something Soweto, Ulele. But yeah, since mina ngumuntu obeliever ngesikhathi, so ngiyakwazi ukulinda, like, because sometimes ungaba no music ube mningi, but maybe it's not, if it's not your time ugcina sowukhipha kakhulu and abantu bagcina sebabhoreka bengekho sure ukuthi what do you want yabo. So I use isikhathi eside when I'm away ngokuthi ngibe active kwezinye ingoma and ezenza kahle nazo.
Yeah. Do you prefer that, Professor? Do you prefer sort of being behind the scenes and maybe collaborating with other artists in different ways versus you sort of being the front man of your own music?
Yes, mina ngiprefer kakhulu kanjalo because I think inika i-growth ngiyaba stronger. But when I come out for my live performances, ngiba stronger kakhulu because abantu kuringa umsebenzi eminingi engiwenzile nabanye abantu namanye ama genres amaningi, so ingenza ngibe stronger and I learn a lot mangisebenza nabanye abantu. Ama genres are different, so ngiba stronger, like the collaboration nje nonhlanhla ngifundisa okuningi, although besisonke kalawa kudala but still ngifan, so masuhleli na umuntu and nisebenza ndawonye, like I learn a lot. I believe that after a certain collab kuba khona growth enkulu kimi.
Talk to us about your creative process, right? Because, for instance, if you ghostwriting for umuntu, you're trying to get into the head of that particular artist, but you, to some degree, you're not in control because of the final product, because you're just writing. And if you're producing, depending what kind of relationship, sometimes it's a collaborative thing. But if you yourself are now the artist and engineering your own work, what is that process like for you, and how different is it for you being in that space of creating as an artist for your own project versus you then collaborating with other people as a producer or a writer?
In most cases, I find it which word could I use? Like, I don't want to say easy, but kuba ngconywana if I collaborate nelinye artist, because number one, I'm a fan. Before yonke I'm a fan yalabantu engisuke collaborate nabo, and I'm not just a fan. I grew up on music wabo, most of them, and if you get an opportunity to work with, for instance, Jonina, and like ngifan kuvuka ezinye izinto kumina zonke izinto, so mangiza I believe ukuthi idea yami isuke isinkulu kakhulu ngoba ngisuke ngizama ukumplease ukuthi yes man, we can do this, and kuba izanyana for me. Ngicina ngizijudge, maybe this song is not for me. I've done that kwamanye amaculo ngareleasile before, like Umoya, Heavy K. It was supposed to be mine, but then I felt like maybe it's not mine. So ngiyajudge too much. So kuba ngconywana if I collaborate, because nami ngiba ne-task ukuthi angimelanga ngimpoqe so and so.
Yeah, but Professor, what you're saying though, does that also speak maybe to how you understand music? Because, for instance, what you just said about, sometimes you'll start creating or producing a song for yourself, and then you realize it's better suited for so and so, and then it becomes a hit. Does that not point to you and your discernment as a producer and understanding what would be best for the product at hand? Because you could selfishly keep things to yourself, and take the gamble, and it would have done better with, for instance, Heavy K.
Yeah, I know. Ngifuna ukukhuluma manga ijeni nakimi, so confusion there and then ngiyayithatha zonke nami lapho ama-faults ami lapha nalapho. For instance, like after breaking away from my group, Tizozo and Professor, even before masihlanganiswa, I was already a solo artist, but I believe I was a bit shy. So even my collabs no, I can still go solo. So fortunately, abantu bebe around me, the youngsters ababakhona, Maporisa, they were still new at Kalawa. So but it's corner, we can do it. So I think ngokwami, because mina ngikholelwa ukuthi umoya engcwele uyadirector, so ngicabanga ukuthi suke lokho ngempela kuyisipho, but then maybe ngibe khona or do something, add on something, but directed to someone, and then see Yeah, but because music is business, sometimes you as a soul, only if I kept it for me. But I think spiritually, I feel free. Wow, music is so and so epic.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess believers of a higher power will say, Uti, what is meant for you will be yours, even if you are the one producing it. Yeah,
amen. Yeah, man.
So it was never meant for you. You were meant to you were the vehicle to pass it on to someone else.
Amen.
Oh no, I love that. All right, so let's talk about this particular collaboration with Unhlanhla Mafu. So is this the build-up to a full record? Are we to expect mhlawumbe come the summertime a full-on record?
Yebo, it's a build-up, and ngiyajabula ukuthi ngiqale kahle with someone engimrespectayo and futhi engicabanga ukuthi ngi-understand because sesike sisebenza before, so ngibe nenhlanhla, especially coming from yabona like away from industry. Some abanye bayasaba, hey, what is he up to? Abanye bayasaba ukuthi no, maybe uzosibuyisela emuva. So nje wangisupporta namanje uyangisupporta, so I think inothando yiyo ke sibuild ukuthi abantu but no, why not an album? So
yeah,
definitely album is on the way.
All right, we shall wait with bated breath. That was Professori, who is a South African celebrated and awarded Kwaito artist. That brand new song, as you heard us play earlier on, featuring Nhlanhla Mafu of Mafikizolo on that with Watsamaya, a precursor to hopefully a full-on summer album that will hit us later on in the year. We look forward to it, and we thank you for taking the time. That was a Professor. Let's take a quick break, and then Ashraf is going to come through and let us know what's coming up on the National Pulse.
Top Sport with Michael Abramson.
Former Super Eagles goalkeeper and former Morocco Swallows goalkeeper Greg Etafia, both sides missing key players. Nigeria have only about 2/3 of the players that did duty in AFCON got all the way to the final, of course, but missing a couple of key players, including Victor Osimhen up front. Is how much of a blow is that to the side?
Probably, sometimes, this thing happens to be a blessing in disguise. Osimhen, he's African best player, he has done a lot, but he's injured now, and with his club situation, you need to sort out one or two situations. But the good thing now, you have Boniface that is back, and even Nigeria feel like, he can add value in terms of the attacking boys in Nigeria. Don't forget, you have Kerry Murphy, the likes of Lukman that are on top form.
Top Sport on SAFM. You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Ashraf is in the building. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty well. Thank you.
Lovely stuff. All right. What's coming up today?
So lots of, as expected, we'll check the first of all, Koos van der Merwe. He's at one stage the longest serving MP in Parliament, both on the Nets and the IFP. And then he was there at the time of that government of national unity. So that's the reason we talked to him. There's a fascinating UN volunteer program, which I think young South Africans would do really well to listen out for around 10 to 4. Okay. We'll also chat to Athol Williams. Now, he's got a fellowship in the UK, a really important one. He was part of this. He's the whistleblower, had to flee the country because he was not being protected. So a very big story. And then there is an update from the DA and the EFF in terms of what their thoughts are
the way forward
regarding, well, you know what.
Yeah. I mean, these conversations are still going to be long, though. I feel like we need to pace ourselves and our anxiety as people.
Yeah, well, the other day we spoke about on our show, naturally saying, okay, elections ends like Saturday, Sunday, then next week we'll have to tweak the show. And we've just worked out that that'll probably go on for another 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
Not even next week, Sunday, at least another week up to inauguration. So at least 2 more weeks.
Yeah.
And that's if things go smooth sailing.
There we go.
If they don't go smooth sailing, then I don't know.
Because I also heard Sai, I think he was doing the news circuit yesterday or today, talking about, obviously, colloquially as Zulus would say, uvulumlomo. These are like the precursor conversations.
Yeah.
And then everyone's going to go back into their little silos and corners and do what they need to do and then come back again. And he was talking about the possibility of a snap election, as they call it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I don't want to get there, but we have to be prepared, right?
Well, I'll tell you what, The Rock rocked, if you get my point.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want a snap election, but being part of The Rock once again, as I've said, for people in the news business, that's your World Cup,
Afraf just wants to go back and hang out with some colleagues for a couple more days. That's all the conversation that's coming up this afternoon on the National Pulse between 3 and 6.
Youth Month on SAFM. #Freedom30. #Youth Month. Tweet at SAFM Radio and at Bridget Masinga. Bridget Masinga on SAFM. The Chill Zone with Bertha Charuma.
Now, with the gentleman that says women have now become, how can I put it, liars. I think that's just the way to put it. Have we lost it to that level, though?
That goes back to the saying that says known hells are preferable to strange heavens. Just because you don't know them, it doesn't mean they are better than the ones that you know. You just rely on your ignorance, because they say ignorance is bliss. If what you don't know cannot hurt you. We don't have any guarantees that women who are outside of the country will act differently, because now generalizations will make us miss the individual that is different from the rest, or that does not conform to the norm. There are still people who don't conform to the norm. So it always helps to look at a person as an individual.
Lehlokonolo Mazindo, relationship therapist and mental health practitioner.
Bertha Charuma, Fridays 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. You are listening to The Full Circle.
As we wrap it up now, we're going to be talking to Mputlane Wabufelo, who is the author of Ya La Koreana, Azanya, and he's going to tell me, yeah, I know my Suti listeners were just like, and then he's going to tell me about the book. How are you doing, Mputlane? Are you good? Mputlane? Dumela?
I'm doing well, and you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Sure.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. Lovely. Thank you for making the time to be in conversation with us. Let's talk firstly about the title of the book. Ya La Koreana, Azanya is the title. Please, can you translate for those of us who don't quite have a grasp of the language, and give us some context?
Okay, sure. Yalla Korean. So the Sotho music mostly uses the concertina, contemporary Sotho music, or what we call it Ikamana. You know what Ikamana uses concertina or the accordion.
Okay.
So Yalla Koreana in Sotho. So Yalla Koreana, I'm talking about the fact that was Sotho, or it's the music is actually echoing throughout Tanzania. But I am using the title of Yalla Koreana as a symbolism of the musical expression, and by extension the aesthetic and artistic and cultural expression of everyday reality and experience in Tanzania, or what people call South Africa.
Okay, so it's the title is more reflective as a metaphor for the state of being right now.
Yes.
I got you. And this book, Ya La Koreana Azanya, is a poetry collection. Tell me a bit about, and am I to assume it's a poetry collection of your work, or perhaps it's a collection of a variety of writers and thinkers?
It's a poetry collection of my work. It's divided into 4 sections. Mm-hmm. The first section is called Homute. So it's basically, again, looking at how what the cow symbolizes and signifies in the life of African people, and how it plays an important role in the political economy of African people. But it also tells the story of the dispossession of a people who were cattle owners, who were land owners, who were farmers, and how they were turned into wage earners or proletariat. And then we've got a section that talks to Melodia Azania. It's actually talking about the music of South Africa and celebrating the different musical expression of the people of South Africa, celebrating some musicians like there's a poem called Nakamalombo, which is talking about the music of the late Chipi, Philip Tabani. There's a poem called Madala Kunene, which is celebrating the music of Madala Kunene, and then there's the title poem Yalla Koreana and other poems that talk about music. Then with a section that is called the Toko Zamputa, it's basically my praise poems that captures my history, how I grew up, my political and social history, and my personal history. Because in my poetry, I always interweave the personal, the political, and the spiritual, because I think they are intertwined. The personal is social, the political is spiritual, and the spiritual is political. So I have that. And then I also have what is called philosophy politics. So it's about philosophy and politics and everyday experience. And Lerato Limufutu. Lerato Limufutu. And then that's where I am talking about, it's more romantic and erotic poetry, because there is a misconception that people can only express themselves philosophically and scientifically in French, English, and other languages. But African languages have got a richness and depth that allow them to be philosophical, that allow them to grapple with political issues and scientific issues of science, and you can be romantic and erotic in African languages. That is basically the point I'm making in those sections.
And in fact, Ntate Mputlane, the work that you're presenting in this book, Yala Koreana, as you allude to, is a convergence and an intersection of many areas of which you have a personal and professional interest. Politics, governance, development, all of it coming into one, but this time around through your voice as a poet and writer.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah. Why is it important also for you to sort of bring and tie in all of this together and bring all of these intersectionalities together?
Yes, because there is this problem of compartmentalization of life and of human experience, but human experience is intertwined. And I think when we have this mentality of compartmentalizing things and always seeing things in binary terms, always seeing a dichotomy between things instead of interconnection, that is most of the time our humanity. We lose it because of the process of othering. But when we stop othering, when we look at possibilities beyond the either or, and see the interconnection. For example, as a human being, you do not live in isolation, and the capacity of human being to relate to others, to empathize with other people's experience is very important, especially when we live in an era when the bodies, the minds, and the souls of other people are objectified. It's important for us to express ourselves, especially, for example, as a male, being part of the oppressor group when it comes to patriarchy. Because no matter how progressive you are, at the end of the day, you are the beneficiary of patriarchy.
Absolutely.
So therefore, we have an obligation to also move beyond the confines of the benefits, the privileges accorded to us because we are males, and therefore be able to see the oppression that exists. So some of the poems that I do, I try to do that. For example, I have a poem called Dibuse. Dibuse. So it means return them back. So I will just read it. Dibuse. Malome o tla ntshwarela ke itse mohlankana ke a mo tseba o tla ka kgomo tsa bohadi tse ahang setswalle empa o tla qoba tsa bohata tse tsamayang le dikgoka di buseng kgomo tseo ha di buele ha botsona sakeng le so ha ke di hloke tse tswang ke pelo e mafito monga tsona a nagana go mosadi ke pokole. So basically the essence of the poem already is there, that most men think that because they have paid up lobola, now they own the body, the mind and the soul of a woman. So I use my poetry to express this kind of issues, but at the very same time to show the depth of Sesotho language and other African languages.
As we wrap it up, Ntate Mputlane, this work I know that is actually forming part of a broader project that's using literature to, obviously, as you've said, to reclaim and own our minds, bodies and goals. Are you able to just in a minute give us maybe a little overview of where this particular project is going to evolve?
Yes, last year I published a collection of essays called Transitions, from post-colonial illusions to decoloniality, and where I was expressing the historical consciousness of young South Africans who were born in the transition period. The gap between the illusion that they are born free and their realities. So now I decided to move beyond essays to now capture this in the form of poetry. But I also have a play that is currently being performed in different parts of South Africa called Gunova, which is also a semi-fictional account of my experiences and my observations and my reflections about South Africa, the past, the present, and the future. Gunova specifically is located in the 80s when I was a teenage political prisoner.
Yeah.
Then launch into the present. So that is basically, so I'm using a multiplicity of artistic expressions to capture this project of using literature as a social tool for liberation, for empowerment.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the time this afternoon. That was, of course, author, poet, essayist, playwright, and political scientist, Butlane Wabufelo. That is how we wrap it up. That book, Yala Koreana Azanya, is available. It is a collection of his poetic works and, of course, written in Sesotho. From myself and my team, it has been an honor and a privilege to be in your company over the past week. And we thank you, as always, for choosing to be in conversation with us. At times, even, welcoming our call for you to share some of your most personal experiences as we traverse a whole host of topics throughout the days. We'll see you again on Monday. If you are on the road, be safe. Enjoy the journey to getting to wherever you are going. It's just as interesting and as important as the final destination. And of course, Ashraf is going to be with you between 3 and 6. Inshallah, God willing, we all get to come back again on Monday and enjoy each other's company.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
Hi, my name is Kutlwana Masote, your host of Weekend Sundowner Classics every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between the hours of 4 and 7 p.m. exclusively on SAFM. Now, this is where you get your best classical music jams on any radio platform. Join me every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between 4 and 7 p.m.